Welcome to the September 2024 BPAC Commission meeting. I am Joe Caruso, the Vice Chair. I'm the Joe Caruso, the Vice Chair. Nick Neptune, our Chair, is out of town this month, so I will be leading us tonight. So without further ado, let's go into introductions, starting at my right.
Mary Jo Gellenbeck, Planning Committee.
Tammy Stern, Planning Committee.
Elizabeth Alley, Policy Committee.
Celeste Bravo-Taylor, Planning Committee.
Brian Thomas, Outreach Committee.
Jeronica Goodwin, Planning Committee.
William Smith, Outreach Committee.
Beverly Clark, Parks Recreation Greenway Advisory Board.
Will Shoemaker, staff.
Barbara Godwin, staff.
Okay. So for the first item, we have the approval of the minutes from last month. I'll give everybody a minute to do any last-minute review and ask for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the minutes from last month. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. The next item is public comment. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak? I believe there was at least one person that signed up or emailed.
Hi, everybody. My name is Athena Wallen. I would like to talk about the Brookside Drive parking proposal yet again, mostly because I didn't quite get a chance to open a conversation about some of the things inside of a document that I put together. One of the concerns being just how the outreach of the proposal occurred for this project. I guess I'll just start with that. And in doing so, I kind of want to introduce Brookside from my perspective. You could see my little mouse, so you could follow along if you want. This may not be entirely accurate in terms of what has been deemed owned by the homeowner, because there are neighbors that I have not yet met. But this kind of depicts the current residency of the 2 blocks of Brookside Drive that the parking proposal would affect. The outreach of the parking proposal was sent out to homeowners. This complicates things because, well, these 2, 3, 4, so on houses with no occupancy because they're being built, and then questionable occupancy because they might be moving in or who knows what. I don't know who actually got informed about this, because I kind of stumbled upon the realization that I am essentially what I call an undocumented homeowner. So I am the wife of the homeowner here. We have 2 separate minds, and I have very strong opinions. I was not invited into this conversation with that basic outreach letter. And despite me responding, I never got like an actual meaningful invitation into those insights that I was concerned about, which leads me to coming here repeatedly. I want to understand why this parking proposal was not implemented in the same strategies as the rest of the transportation department. For instance, Edmund Street had to go through a voting process that was sent out to a wide range of individuals. They went through design process. They voted on it. This parking proposal was sent to a limited scope with a criminally narrow mind of whose voice should be accounted for because renters are not a part of that, wives are not a part of that, roommates. We're missing out on a lot of conversation that needs to be a part of our planning. If we want to have roads that are equitable for all modalities, then that conversation starts at the beginning of whatever transportation department is doing. Somebody at every level needs to be coming with these concerns for other modalities, and that includes visibility, the safety of these other individuals using these streets that could be affected by additional sporadic parking on this particular corridor. And I am concerned by the lack of collaboration, because I know I'm not the only one that got confused as to why there was parking being put up, even after this reached the parking division, and then we were told repeatedly that it was out of Department of Transportation's hands. They could no longer do anything. It was in parking division. Parking division is an inherently car-centric division. So you see the conflict. We need to bring that equity into every level. Why didn't this proposal come back for collaboration? You have a neighborhood clearly trying to have more conversations, saying, no, this isn't how we use our street. But there was still no collaboration. In fact, when I was very, very emotionally writing my email and coming to City Council in May, there was a revision to the parking proposal for Edmund Street drivers. They had a concern that there would be a lack of visibility pulling out of their street. So Parking Division responded and said, yeah, we see that, we understand that. We will reduce the amount of parking so that you have clear line of sight. They responded to somebody's concern from a driving perspective. I am a pedestrian. I am a cyclist. I am a driver. I am a homeowner. My mistake, because I didn't know in the chaos of everything getting married, you also have to go back and fill out really boring paperwork. How long have our voices not been heard? Is it just this proposal, or is it systematic because we don't realize it? Or worse, do you realize it? I brought this up in August. I shared this information. I waited for conversation, for some sort of information to come back to me to let me know whether or not additional people, additional residents of that area were even contacted. And yet this proposal is still trying to be passed. Who is it for? Why did it get stuck in this little loop of limbo that only serves a specific audience? We've been asking for collaboration. So I am upset that collaboration was not had. And then I get even more upset that when I came to the Transportation Department meeting last month, I was trying to explain the movement of the street and kind of the difficulties of this parking proposal, but I kept getting crammed back into this 2-block range. Keep talking about the proposal in these 2 blocks, because the proposal was affecting only 2 blocks worth of Raleigh, which is not true. Traffic calming begins for this road, traffic calming begins at Wake Forest, and I begged City Council. I'm begging everybody now. I've been working so hard to touch that north end cap of Brookside to try to start activating it and condition drivers into expecting other modalities and looking out for other people on this street before those parked cars come in there and they say, whoops, and just move their car into my lane of traffic as either a driver, a cyclist, even a pedestrian. And we still don't have a conversation oriented around that. I have not heard what the Department of Transportation even thinks of this. So I am upset. And I want to encourage. So much conversation can be had. There are so many issues with this parking proposal that it makes me nervous how many people went unheard around the city for many things. If we are working with archaic ways of reaching out to people, we are missing the evolution of our voices. You are missing people trying to tell you how we use our streets. So where is the support? And I know that I'm preaching to the choir because you speak on the issues that I do. BPAC disapproved of the parking proposal. The advisory council that is trying to usher this evolution of how we use our streets and share with other modalities is not even being heard. So I'm upset. But I want to just I was told that I had to talk only about those 2 blocks when the proposal itself brought up an entire section beyond those 2 blocks that was never discussed, never brought up in the proposal, and then that action item came up to be voted on by City Council. This changes so much. If parking was allowed here on that blind curve with no street markings, do you want to know what we should do? Put street markings in front of a school. Do you want to know how we should traffic calm? Begin at Wake Forest, diffuse the speeds with activity and markings, and just so much possibility if we collaborate. Where is that cross-department collaboration? Because I'm reaching out to stormwater and I'm trying to get a mural painted onto the street. I'm trying to activate sidewalks so that we have more pedestrians. I'm trying so hard to make this space more pedestrian and cyclist friendly. I'm trying harder than the city right now. Well, I guess that's it, so thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Wallen. As you mentioned, I think that I think everybody on this commission I think agrees with you that we would like to BPAC in general would like to see a more multimodal experience. Not only in Brookside Drive, but obviously across the city, and I very much empathize with your frustration about kind of getting lost in the red tape, so to speak. It is a city of our size, a city of unfortunately any size really. You kind of that kind of is bound to happen. So, it is something that I think that this commission is certainly very aware of and trying to, work on how we can better kind of integrate a lot of these activities together so that we don't have kind of, as you mentioned, these kind of silos of the parking people with obviously cars and really pretty much the only thing that they focus on. And then having that kind of in a silo outside of kind of active transportation and, other related departments. So I do have a question, I guess, for staff. So I know that it was mentioned that this went to council's committee, transportation committee in August, and from a note that I saw, I assume it's coming back. Can you just, are you able to provide some color there as far as what did they just basically defer? I mean, I didn't view the presentation, so I'm not, can you just provide some color on what happened there? Or the
Yeah,
status, I guess?
Largely, we were given some partial direction to bring back more information. Staff has been working on getting that together, and then it will be a follow-up, a lingering item on their September 26th TNT meeting, so coming up. So I would encourage you and Ms. Wallen and the public to attend, to either speak at the public comment or be there to be to hear the conversations that are had.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like I said, I think everybody here agrees with the sentiment. But you know, at this point, I think the current kind of main next action is on the city council for this specific project. Obviously, you know, there's very much kind of bigger picture that needs to be addressed. But on this specific project on Brookside, I think the action is with the city council to kind of determine what the direction is. So as far as advocacy, I would certainly recommend kind of continuing to speak to and influence the counselors, because I mean, at the end of the day, they're the ones that, you know, they're the elected officials. They direct staff to do the thing. So kind of, you know, they have to sign off one way or the other. But I do very much agree that as a city, we can do better on kind of overall engagement. I know that there's been an effort in the last year or two to kind of, whenever these mailers go out, to not just, I know they were originally just sent to homeowners, and then now they're sent to homeowners and kind of the residents. So you get both the homeowners, and if the people that live there are renting, then they get one as the resident. And so there's kind of different things going on in there. But I think it's definitely something that's kind of in progress, but certainly a lot of room for improvement.
Joe, if I could add,
Please.
thanks. I attended the council's transportation committee in August, and 4 of the council members were there. 3 out of the 4 supported Ms. Wallen's presentation and the concerns for adding the on-street parking. I too went to the podium and expressed BPAC's position that to put on-street parking will be problematic in the future. And the 4th council member, Jones, she expressed a great frustration because she felt that that safety has been an issue for this street for over a year. And so staff did provide information on how much more it would cost to put a bike lane in there. And I had the impression when it ended that they would bring that to the full council, their recommendation to increase the funding so bike lane infrastructure would go in replacement of the on-street parking. But that was my takeaway from attending that.
I just wanted to say thank you for coming in and giving us another comment. You are preaching to the choir. We do feel your frustrations both with the way projects are presented and how residents are reached out to. And it helps a lot, as frustrated as you are, it helps a lot to keep hearing other voices so that we are all backing up the same position and fighting for safer neighborhoods.
And I think this street is on the bike plan is scheduled for bike lanes, but it wasn't in the near term. Is that
It is
correct?
identified as a street that the city would like to place bike lanes on. It is not currently a priority project in the next, 5-year plan? So there are no plans in the immediate term, but it is on our long-term plan to transition to bike lanes on this street.
Okay. Can you, real quick, just help us understand what do you mean by a priority project, and how are those selected?
You can see.
So the 2016 bike plan had a list of 67 priority projects that would be implemented over the course of the 10-year plan. We're coming up on the end of that 10-year plan in 2026 and are actively working on the plan update, which will generate a new list of priority projects.
So priority projects, those are ones you want to have done sooner rather than later. How do you define those? I guess that's what I'm asking.
There are several criteria that were used, safety, connectivity to greenways, different criteria of that nature.
That were identified in the 2016 proposal, right, Barbara?
I think it tells you something about the backlog of projects that this one would not merit that. I mean, I think
Right.
that's quite telling. But I think the point when this came to our commission originally was, while parking might be seen short-term as a method of traffic calming, that it would, in long-term, hurt the possibility of getting a bike lane there, because you're going to put in parking that people will become accustomed to using, and then we'll have to fight to remove it. So
Right,
why
right.
not? Would it be practicable to just use the lane as the traffic calming? It sounds like
Yeah.
that's what they're exploring now.
Council members also agreed that they felt that that was problematic to put them in and then remove them.
I also feel like when we first reviewed the plan at Brookside, we were told that bike lanes were not in the budget, which is really hard to hear when we're talking about testing unbuffered bike lanes at State Street for a period of time, but we didn't want to test it at Brookside. And also frustrating to hear that painting one type of line is more expensive than painting another type of line.
I'd like to close out, if, I mean, anyone can speak after me, but Ms. Wallens pointing out that the Brookside Drive north of Frank Street is really critical in the overall traffic calming of that area. That the drivers coming off of the Wake Forest, there's no indicators that they are approaching a high pedestrian, multi-user, residential neighborhood. And so staff, I'd like to ask about, where is it written that it mandates volume of motor vehicles, stipulates if traffic calming can go on the street? Because that I've heard repeatedly, that Brookside Road or Drive, the volume of traffic prevents the city from installing speed cushions.
So that's a factor of why Brookside Drive is not eligible for traffic calming. So in the neighborhood traffic management program policy, streets with 6,000 vehicles per day or more volume are prohibited from receiving a project offering. The same is true for streets under 500. So we have that range of 500 to 5,999 for volume capacity that is eligible for traffic calming. So that is one component, and Brookside is above that as it exists today. I think the more...
And can you tell me where that is?
It's
Where
in the neighborhood traffic management program policy.
So it's a policy that
Yes,
could
ma'am.
possibly be changed?
Yes, ma'am. But
Okay.
also, the 85th percentile of Brookside Drive is not greater than 5 miles an hour over the posted speed limit, and there have not been 2 or more speed-related crashes. So taking the volume cap out, Brookside does not meet the current definition as a speed compliance or a crash issue. So that's another major reason why it is not eligible for traffic calming. That volume is just a footnote in addition to the other details gathered.
Is there any part of the neighborhood traffic policy management plan that sort of allows for residents to either make a higher priority or sort of make a larger case for a different street section?
So, as it exists today, no. For that reason, we are actively working with 20 streets. We have identified another 120 that are eligible that meet these defined criteria for having a speed or crash compliance issue. The council policy and the direction that we received is that we need to address these streets, these worst first streets, have that worst first approach. So if a street is not on our list, it will be then therefore be jumping streets with an identified and documented speed or crash problem, as opposed to just if you want it and you can drum up enough support. So we go with a very data-driven approach to be equitable and, again, worst first.
May I ask, you have numbers, you have traffic numbers for that stretch.
Yes, sir.
Do you have pedestrian, other modes, any counts for them?
So we do not have any of that.
Okay. And there's a policy on how much road traffic deserves calming or not. Is there a policy on how much pedestrian or bicycle traffic?
I guess as it relates to when we install sidewalks or factor into traffic calming?
Well, I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, are cars the only factor? Are we factoring
For traffic
in?
calming?
Or what
Yeah.
about schools?
Yeah.
Can't
For-
that
for-
just be a factor itself?
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so are pedestrians. So we look at a number of factors. The first three that we look at are speed, volume, and crashes. If we find that the 85th percentile speed, meaning that 85% of cars are going at or under a speed, is 5 miles an hour or greater than the posted speed limit, we and Raleigh have defined that as a speed compliance issue. If we find that there have been two speed-related crashes or more, two or more speed-related crashes in the previous 3 years, we define that as a habitual crash problem. And then we look at the volume data.
You're talking about vehicle crashes.
Yes, well, it could be
All
with a
crashes.
pedestrian. It's just if a car is speeding and causes a crash, whatever that is, then that's how we define a crash problem.
So what you're saying is that it's all based on tragic outcomes.
Yes, sir, as it exists today.
So
But then
that, to me, that is just not acceptable. If the only thing that you do is look at tragic outcomes, then you're excluding all of the other parts of the equation.
Well-
And I know you need numbers to make decisions. You can't just make decisions capriciously.
Absolutely.
And the numbers that you get are from the police because they're filling out traffic reports. And so it's an easy number to find. But I think over a period of time, we're going to have to figure out how to get that other information. We can't just say, well, this is the only information we have and this is the only thing we can base our decisions on, because there's a lot of things falling through the cracks.
So
Quality of life stuff.
sorry to cut you off there and jump in, but those are the first three things that we look at. And again, we've identified over 120 streets that have those bad outcomes that are actively happening. But then also how we prioritize projects. We then look at bus routes. Is it a bus route? Then it gets a sliding scale point, depending on how bad that is. Are there bike lanes? If yes, there's a sliding scale point. Are there sidewalks? We look at both sides, one side, partial or none, and then it's a sliding scale, almost an exponential scale, depending on how bad the speed limit is. We look at
Safety is a function of access.
absolutely.
And if the only thing you're concentrating on is safety, then you're missing the other parts of access. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
If I might, it sounds like Brookside didn't meet the original 3 criteria to even be considered.
Correct.
So why is the on-street parking going in?
Because of a documented aggressive driving behavior when there used to be, again, but it's by a minority. This is not a habitual. Traffic calming is set up to do a habitual needs. This is a small minority of people that are using the historical carpool queue lane that no
They're
longer
still
needs,
empty, though.
that no longer needs to happen because of the on-site queuing. So there's an empty right turn lane that runs the entire length that people are using as a passing lane instead of a turning lane. And so it is a small minority of people that are using the street aggressively that we want to try to address with this
So
effort.
you're saying that parking is actually traffic calming?
We are trying to solve the aggressive driving behavior by removing the extra pavement width.
Could I comment on, as a response? So when I was hit by a driver, it was low speed. My bike was valued $60 for the frame. When cyclists and pedestrians get struck, it doesn't matter how fast a car is going. It is human against car. So I just feel very strongly about reorienting how we are approaching what we deem is safe, because it still sounds like it's coming from a car-centric mentality. And like it's a thing that, it's a cultural shift that we are trying to make, so it takes time. I understand, and I don't think anyone's like a villain. Even as we're talking here, I'm not hearing opportunities to collaborate with other departments to address the northern cap, or a concern at all from the Department of Transportation about my concern. And the proposal that is set out still has that right turn lane empty for half of the block. Small bit of parking for cars, and then empty for visibility for Edmond drivers. So I don't understand how it's supposed to be effective the way that it is when it has only thought about cars. And I hope that makes some sense. Like, when I am walking on Brookside, I know that my sidewalk ends on my side of the street in front of an elementary school. When I see children getting to school in their little crossing guard signs, it's adorable, but they are limited to a sidewalk. And the hope that the drivers coming around that blind curve are attentive enough and caring enough to remember it's school zone. It's a school zone. But the moment that school is out, those drivers are still there. If you put cars parked on the street, they're still gonna be there, but now their force of the car that could have potentially hit a telephone pole is now potentially hitting another massive of metal. There was actually an accident, so Saturday was crazy for Brookside. And I went out to help my community both times. First time, there was a toolbox full of screws and metal pieces of stuff that fell off of a truck, scattered everywhere, and our community came out to guide traffic, sweep up the sound, because I knew that if anybody in a car had to wait for some unknown reason, they were going to get aggressive, and they did. Despite the fact that a bunch of people were trying to protect their cars by removing the screws and guiding them through a safe path, we were still met with driver aggression. It was a Saturday afternoon, no cars parked at all. We were lucky that we had visibility, because if a car went around the intersection accelerating, we would be in trouble. And then later that night, actually in the wee hours of the morning, a car ran into another car at the intersection of Brookside and Glasscock. Do you know how scary it is to wake up to that kind of sound? It reminds me of when I got hit by a piece of metal. It's not fun. But I went out there, ready to help anybody that needed help. Their cars were going slowly, but they still made a terrifying sound. The car that got hit skidded all the way across the intersection. And you're telling me you want to put a bunch of parked cars there before we calm the traffic? I disagree with that method, because right now, Brookside Drive has the grace of the visibility aspect. So when these sorts of proposals come in, and I'm saying that it's only car-centric, it's because you don't think that slow impact collisions can happen, or that our intersection has a downslope where if that car was rotated the other way and impacted from, the other side, it could have hit my neighbor's house. It still does damage at low speeds. And that's the scary thing. So that's why Brookside is trying so hard to get all of the visibility, encourage all of the pedestrians and all of the other modalities to feel safe there, because we know they travel on that road. We know it. We have seen the near misses. I have been honked at trying to turn left into my driveway on my bicycle. It's scary when a car is just revving its engine, honking its horn, and you're just trying to get home. All I was doing was riding my bike. So traffic calming isn't just about putting cars on the street. Please, I know it's hard. We just have to collaborate. I'm working to put more things into this area. The Department of Transportation should be able to go back and say, hey guys, what are we missing? How can we collaborate towards this shared goal? If the Department of Transportation can't afford it right away, and the neighborhood is intensely wanting something, why isn't there an in-between opportunity? Why do we have to wait 10 additional years to restripe half a mile just to work on conditioning drivers to know that I'm there? Or give us space?
I'm going to use this opportunity. That's all right. Joe, is it possible for us to explore this in the policy committee on what defines the approach for traffic calming? The most important word that I just heard was neighborhood street. It seems really like an important issue. And since policy is the way that guides our decision-making and investments, maybe this is one area that we haven't tackled yet.
Yeah, I think it would be good to look at the kind of the criteria. That being said, like Mr. Shoemaker said, I guess my concern is that the city has a quite enormous backlog already, and adding more at the end of the list or in the list, like that. Our main problem is that the list isn't shrinking, right? Not that we have.
Oh, you mean a list of projects?
Yeah, the main problem is that we have a list of projects that we can't seem to kind of shrink, and largely, so there are projects going forward, but we're adding more back in as fast as we're completing them.
I agree. I just think that we should be thinking about the future.
Sure. I agree. I think at least kind of understanding some of the criteria a little bit better, and things like that. I think.
And it would be great to bring Mr. Commissioner Smith in and be the voice of pedestrians, to take in that data and value it with equality to the motor vehicle traffic.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I do want to move on to our agenda. Ms. Wallen,
Thank you so much. I'm sorry that I took so much time, but I do appreciate.
Thank you. I just wanted to say
Thank you.
I very much appreciate you coming out tonight and last month, and all of the effort that you have put into this this activity, and all the effort that I'm sure that you will continue to do. And like was mentioned, I think kind of continuing to talk to the city councilors on the TNT committee, and the follow-up from coming in September. Sorry, I had it in front of me.
26.
September 26th, I'm hearing. Yes, September 26th. I think that is, at least in the short term for this specific project, is going to be kind of the most fruitful going forward. So with that, let's move on to the presentations. The first one is,
Anybody else to speak?
oh, is there anybody, does anyone else,
Public comment?
public comment? Yes, no? No. Okay, moving on to presentations. First one is the comprehensive plan update, 2030 comp plan update.
Hey, good evening. My name is Bronwyn Reedus. I am a senior planner with the Long Range and Comprehensive Planning Group in the Planning and Development Department. So I've never been to this advisory committee before, so it's nice to meet you all, and thank you so much for having me. All right. I'm going to talk to you all a little bit about Raleigh's next comprehensive plan. The name for the planning process is Reflecting Raleigh. So want you all to be able to answer a couple of questions after my presentation today. So want to address, what is a comprehensive plan? Why do we have one? What is in the 2030 plan? What's changed since it was adopted and updated? What is the new plan going to look like? What's the process for the development of the new plan? And of course, how can you all get involved in the process? So a comprehensive plan is kind of a overarching policy and vision document. It is required by state law that municipalities have them to be able to enforce zoning and development regulations. So it's the foundation for our zoning code and our development regulations, a lot of those found in the UDO, or the Unified Development Ordinance. Like I said, it creates a long-term vision for what we think Raleigh should look like in the future. How it should look and how it should feel and how it should work for the residents that live here. Raleigh's comprehensive plan was originally adopted in 2009. It was updated through kind of a long process between 2014 and 2019, and it hasn't been updated since 2019. Our current plan has that long range vision set for 2030. It's a pretty long document. I'm sure all of you have had the chance to look at it at least a little bit in your tenure here, but it includes 5 overarching vision themes. It has 18 sections, over 1,000 policies, over 1,000 actions, 30 special area plans, and then several maps. And so these are things that we really use really heavily throughout like the rezoning process, but some of those maps include the growth framework map, the future land use map, the urban form map, and the street plan map. All right, so the plan we're working with now was adopted back in 2009. Obviously, Raleigh is a little bit different than it was back in 2009. Especially population. So Raleigh has grown a lot in population since 2009. In fact, it's grown at a pace of 1.2% on average. Just to put that into perspective, I have a fun little number here. So in 2023, the population in Raleigh was 482,295 people. If the 1.2 average annual increase were to continue, we would be looking at 665,600 people by the year 2050. So lots of people come into Raleigh. There's also been a lot of just land being added to Raleigh since 2009. So over 4,000 acres have been annexed into the city limits since just 2019. And then over 5,000 acres have been rezoned since 2017. And rezonings, typically they ask for more, like they ask for higher heights or more density. So lots of change. We We also have different policy and regulatory context in today versus 2009. There's been changes to the state annexation laws. So the state requires that all annexations are voluntary. They have to be requested by the property owner. That was different back in 2009. Back in 2009, the city could annex property. And so that just changes how the city plans for services and infrastructure. Also, a lot of other plans have been developed since the comprehensive plan was first adopted. So now the city has its strategic plan, and it also has the community climate action plan. Each department in the city has its own business plan. And then we also have a lot of other regulatory documents in addition to the UDO. We have the Stormwater Design Manual, the Public Utilities Handbook, for example. So there's a lot of other plans, policies, visions that exist outside of the comprehensive plan, and a little bit of work needs to be done to make those jive together. And then finally, there have been changes in the planning practice in general since 2009. We see a lot more emphasis on multimodal inclusivity, housing diversity and choice, housing affordability, racial equity, sustainability and resilience, and also people are just doing their work days differently, and traffic is behaving differently. There's different peak hour times because of the changes to working locations and remote work that have happened in recent years. So with all of that change, it's time to revisit the comprehensive plan and make it new, make it fresh. So we see kind of these three major themes being the focus areas for the next comprehensive plan: equity, sustainability, and alignment. So equity, meaning we want to encourage housing and business opportunities to be accessible to all residents of Raleigh. We want sustainable provision of infrastructure and services, as well as environmental sustainability. And then we want alignment with the Capital Improvements Project, or the CIP, and all of the other adopted city plans that have been adopted since 2009. Here's a look at the project timeline. It's a big project, and it's going to unfold over about 2.5 years, we're anticipating. So right now we are in phase 1, which is that initial engagement phase. You can see the phases lined out here: phase 2, plan development; phase 3, plan drafting; phase 4, review and engagement; and then phase 5 would be the final review and adoption. We are targeting that adoption in December of 2027. So one of the major hallmarks of this phase 1 of engagement is community conversations. So our department, in partnership with other city departments, are putting on this series of 6 community conversations. And the topics of these conversations are centered around topics that we hear the most from residents as we do engagement in the community and hear from rezoning, kind of neighborhood meetings, and at council. So those topics are affordable housing, mobility, stormwater, trees, sustainable infrastructure and services, and neighborhood change. So each community conversation has several elements within it. There will be kind of a main event that will include a keynote speaker and then some expert speakers. At that main event, we're going to have in-person surveys and online polling, and then we're going to facilitate community conversations at that event. Following each community conversation kind of main event will be several Ask a Planner events. That will be an opportunity for folks to connect with somebody from the planning department or the Housing and Neighborhoods Department, Stormwater Department, whoever it is, and kind of have a one-on-one conversation to be able to ask questions or give feedback. So the first community conversation was August 17th in partnership with Housing and Neighborhoods. That was the Affordable Housing Summit. It was streamed and recorded, so if you're interested in checking it out, you can go to the website and search Affordable Housing Summit. You can watch the recording there. We do have upcoming Ask a Planner events that are following that Affordable Housing Summit, so those are going to be housing focused. Those events, just so I can share them with you tonight. The first one will be September 18th, 3 to 6 p.m. That'll be virtual. The next is September 25th, 3 to 6 p.m. That'll be at the Tarboro Road Community Center. And then the final one will be October 2nd, 3 to 6 p.m. at the Green Road Community Center. And that event will have Spanish-speaking support. So you can learn more about those events or sign up for the virtual one if you're interested on the city's website. Then I also wanted to spread the word about the next conversation that'll be coming up in December. That'll be stormwater focused. That'll be December 4th and 5th. It'll be over 2 days. It'll be held at the Martin Street Baptist Church from 6 to 8 p.m. on both of those days. All right, and then just to speak a little bit about phase 2, which will be planned development. That'll really be informed and a way for us to stay connected with the community. There are 2 ways that we're looking to do that: through technical working groups and a citizen assembly. So the technical working groups will be made up of city staff, local practitioners, and then representatives from boards and commissions, such as yourselves. And then the citizen assembly is actually pretty cool. We haven't done one in Raleigh yet, but it is going to be a group of about 40 to 50 residents, and residents will opt in to being in the selection pool, and then will be selected to form a representative sample of the Raleigh population. And for both of these groups, people who are participating are going to be paid hourly for their service. And yeah, if you're interested in getting involved with the technical working group, we will be reaching out to your staff liaison and they can provide you more information about getting involved. And then phases 3, 4, and 5, they're a little bit far out in the future right now, but just want to highlight that we will be doing ongoing engagement throughout. You'll probably see us back here at another one of your meetings. An exciting thing that we're trying is we're working with local artists to help us design some engagement events, trying to think outside of the box, get some more interactive engagement, more inclusive engagement. We want to try to reach people that we don't normally get to reach. And so that's exciting. We also have pop-up events, community group presentations, online surveys, and Ask a Planner events. Those are kind of our typical bag of tricks in our pocket that we always use for city planning, but there's lots of ways to be involved throughout. But that concludes my presentation. Again, it's called Reflecting Raleigh. If you want to learn more, go to the Raleigh website and you can search Raleigh's Next Comprehensive Plan. My colleague, Sarah Shaughnessy, is actually the project manager, so you can reach out directly to her if you know you're going to be interested in getting involved. Her contact information is on the screen there, and I'm happy to answer any questions or take any feedback that you have tonight. But again, thanks so much for having me and letting me talk about the next comprehensive plan.
Thank you very much. I just had one question before open it up. As far as kind of the plan horizon, you mentioned this is the 2030 update, but so this plan or this update is going to be done in the end of 27. So, you know, I guess my question is, when do we kind of start kind of the next longer term horizon, right? Because like if the plan is being updated in 28 for 2030, we're already there. So
No, that's
Right, our current one is 2030, so like.
That's correct.
when-
So our current comprehensive plan, the horizon year is 2030.
Right.
So this next comprehensive plan that we're working on now, the expected horizon year is 2050,
Oh,
likely.
okay, I'm, okay. That's where I got confused.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I think it would probably, just as a suggestion, it would probably be helpful in your kind of messaging if you call out that this is for the 2050 kind of horizon, because 2030 implies that like that's the horizon that you're looking at for this update. Okay. Any questions or comments from the commission? Ms. Clark?
I have one, and that is you sort of had your three key areas as equity, sustainability, and alignment. And equity and sustainability, we talk about a lot all the time in different commissions. Alignment is where the city, it really falls down. You've got things, like one example that is front of mind for me is we just finished Crabtree West extension and the Greenway, and yet in 6 months, Public Utilities is going to be ripping up part of the Greenway. And I don't call that alignment. I think it is a travesty that we are not better aligned. I think also when the prior conversation on the bike plan reflects lack of alignment, because part of what causes the cost of those 10 projects is that we have this requirement, and I'm maybe off base here, but it's my understanding that we only put bike lanes in when we're repaving. If we had a different criteria, then that, if that was a less important criteria of the pavement, then we would have a different cost calculation that we would do. And so again, alignment is where the city is really dropping the ball.
So just as a comment or clarification, so as far as the priority bike plan, the city does not only install bike lanes during resurfacing, but kind of in practice, a good chunk of the ones that have been installed or created in the last decade or so have been via that process, and kind of having it be part of that I mean, I'm sure there's all kind of strange internal accounting, but my understanding is that the kind of the cost structure of that is effectively free, since they're already they were already going to do the resurfacing, not the other way around. So we kind of get the bike lanes more or less for free.
But it does affect the prioritization, and that's what my
Right,
angle is.
absolutely. So yeah, so I totally agree. Like we shouldn't just be relying on streets to come up for resurfacing to get bike lanes.
Yeah, maybe it should be the other way around.
Right, it should actually be the other way around. But yes, just to clarify that that's not the only way that bike lanes happen. Yes.
I just wanted to comment. I didn't hear anything about pedestrians at all. Is there a element in the plan, comprehensive plan, that includes, how we're going to get around without, total gridlock all the time? Is there anything?
Yeah, in the current plan, there are a multitude of policies and actions related to pedestrian mobility, bicycle mobility, just improving multimodal mobility in general, as well as kind of reducing vehicle miles traveled by encouraging more mixed use. So we kind of see that theme throughout. I do expect that will continue, of course, and we will continue to hear that as a really
So when you say
high
the
priority.
current plan, you're talking about the one that ends in 2030?
Yes, the one that's
So
adopted
you
today.
expect to just roll those over?
No,
plans and
no.
policies that are-
New policies will be developed through the working policy groups and the citizen assembly as a part of
I
the.
guess I just was really interested in hearing that, at the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission, hearing something about what you guys are going to do for pedestrians beyond what's happening now, which is obviously not adequate by and large.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the feedback that we want to hear from you. And as we kind of go through these community conversations, we want to invite you all there and hear that feedback from you. And once we get to the plan drafting stage, we want to have you as the experts to give us that information about what that needs to look like in the next plan.
And
sure.
is on a follow-up, and it's kind of an alignment issue too. I've talked to a bunch of different people in city government over the last couple of years, and I keep asking the question about parking. And the city is doing the BRT, transit-oriented development zone, and allowing height and density. And I asked the question about, well, does that mean that these larger, denser population buildings, are they going to have fewer parking because you're trying to encourage pedestrian lifestyle by putting everybody there and making it possible to concentrate the infrastructure? And is there any kind of discussion happening about, are we just going to keep using the same parking model for all the development in the city, forever, or are we going to change it to try and bring traffic down some?
That's a good question, and I'm definitely not the expert on the parking, but the UDO doesn't have any parking minimums in it today, as I understand, and so that's kind of left up to the market and the developer and what they see as a need for their project. So I think that is kind of what we have today, but certainly want to encourage you to continue to raise that as maybe something that we can wrap into the policies of the comprehensive plan.
Thank you.
As my time on BPAC comes to a close, I probably won't be here the next time we hear an update on the comp plan, so this is really jumping to when we start plan drafting. I just wanted to encourage the commission to keep a close eye on the policies that are used from the comprehensive plan to evaluate rezoning proposals, because I think that we all know that bicycle and pedestrian safety and the ability to live without a car by choice, not just by necessity, comes down to a lot of factors, both about how buildings are constructed, how their loading zones are oriented, where their parking is, but also our street patterns. And one of the points of friction I see a lot in rezoning cases, and this comes from the comp plan and from our streets plan, is about the gridded network that we're trying to encourage. But nobody likes to have more traffic come in. So these, to me, that is a policy that could be eroded if we are not vigilant. So I'd encourage you all to stay pretty actively informed in the process, and even if you can get on to any of those working committees, I think it would be a great spot to think about, I guess, how do you even set the framework, kind of the big broad level, the idea of, thinking about the entirety of a road, not just 2 blocks, but at a city scale, because these policies and in the comp plan really actually do have very concrete impact on the built environment. So that's my plea.
And street trees.
God, I love a street tree.
Yeah.
Would I be right in understanding that the comprehensive plan and the policies sort of within the UDO would, that those sort of lay out updates or influence other plans such as our neighborhood traffic policy management plan and some of those other sort of neighborhood and bicycle and pedestrian-centric issues?
Yes, so the UDO is regulations, but the comprehensive plan is policy. It's just the vision. It's kind of what we're aspiring towards. So the idea is that is kind of setting the vision, setting the tone, and all of the plans should ideally be consistent with each other and sending the same message. So that's, I understand today they're not all fully aligned, and there's a lot, right? So that's part of the work of this plan, is getting everything aligned.
That was a really great question. No, I'm sincere, because the earlier conversation we were having, which was brought up about motor vehicle volume, on particularly Brookside, and that, so we have these measurements. Would that fall under the UDO policy?
It's right of way. UDO is private property.
Okay. Well, okay. So, because as I was listening and watching your presentation, she talked about the population growth, and that made me think, well, population growth means more motor vehicles. And maybe when the policy was written about traffic, was based on the population at that time. So, right, a road with 6,000 motor vehicles, is it daily? Might have been more of an artery road, whereas Brookside is a residential road, in my opinion, particularly because it has the homeowners and a school associated with it. So as we move forward in our policies, reflecting on the population growth, I think should impact those decision makings in the transportation industry, in addition to not just motor vehicle, but elevating the other users in the space. Because you can create all the space you want, but if it doesn't reach the comfort level, most people are going to choose the one that's the most safe. And being inside a motor vehicle at this time in Raleigh is more comfortable and feels safer than to be a pedestrian or another mode of transportation. So I thought that was really an interesting timing, that you should present this stuff, identifying our growth, and then reflecting back on those policies that were written when the population wasn't as it is today. Yeah? So maybe that, and when we go forward, Joe, this policy that you guys do an analysis on can be about adjusting it as our population grows.
I totally agree.
Is that, yeah, because sometimes I don't make sense when I talk. Because it's all in my mind. I can't get my words out fast enough.
I totally agree. Like, I do think, I believe that some of the, it all depends on what we're talking about specifically, but I think a number of these things kind of build in, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. A lot of these things build in kind of models on population growth, and kind of where it cuts against us is a lot of traffic modeling builds in population growth under the assumption that people will continue to drive at the same rate that they do today 50 years in the future. So then you kind of get these crazy numbers of if we don't widen the road, then there's going to be 10 million people on the street. You get all kind of stupidity. But yeah, I totally agree that we should be doing those things. I did have one question about kind of the area, whatever you're calling it, about alignment with CIP. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit more and kind of go into what that kind of means in practice? What is that kind of having the comp plan kind of written in a way that kind of looks more towards feasibility, or what does alignment with CIP actually mean?
So today, the currently adopted comprehensive plan has over 1,000 actions.
Right, yeah.
Those actions should, in theory, be translating into projects that are getting done. All 1,000 plus haven't been completed since 2009, right? So, and then we also have the CIP, which has a completely different prioritization structure, completely different projects. We want the comprehensive plan to not be separate from the CIP, but to kind of speak to it. That probably means not having specific projects that are specific action items on a project list. I think the thought is that we will have metrics that are showing progress towards the implementation of the plan, and the metrics will be updated through a data dashboard, and we'll be able to judge the success of the plan implementation through that, but will not be having specific improvement projects laid out in the comprehensive plan. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, yeah, that definitely makes sense.
I think what we're also hoping to hear is that when a project comes in front of stormwater, that they are required to coordinate with, say, an adjacent greenway if it's present. Whether or not they think it's related, that discussion happens at the beginning of the project. Similar to neighborhood resurfacing projects, that it's not just the parking division that gets to decide what's important, that it is both multimodal transportation, it is neighborhood development, it is also looking at how do we upgrade this street, the entire street section, and not just put back in what was there, but like, what is the next best thing for this road since we are doing this work and we are already here putting in new infrastructure. Just because we are BPAC and what we hear the most often is that we are fighting for the bare minimum infrastructure of sidewalks and bicycle lanes.
I just want to second, third, and fourth that.
We're fighting for it and failing.
It is now 7:15. Is there any other comments before we move on? No? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Our next final presentation is on wayfinding signage for our bikeway system.
Barbara, where is it?
Oh, yeah, it's at the bottom.
Thank you.
You're good.
Sorry for that little delay. My name is Will Shoemaker. So at the last session, Commissioner Goodwin asked that we bring forward what that MUTCD compliant bikeway signage would be. So we want to bring forward what that looks like, what options you have, and there are a handful of questions that we want you as a body to help us generate the policies that will inform our design decisions as we go forward. Again, want to do a quick look at the it's not very exciting MUTCD options that you have available, and again, get some how we communicate that wayfinding to the users, as well as look at a bikeway decision tree so that when we're implementing bikeways, we can make good design choices that meet the values of the community, but then also we can justify why those decisions are being made if someone wants something different. So first off, the very exciting Section 9D.01. So they very much look like street signs because in North Carolina, the bicycle is defined as a vehicle. So these need to be compliant with that. So we can't do anything with a little bit more flash or with a different aesthetic. Whereas when you transition to the greenway, if you see those signage, those are not under the same regulatory requirements. So the first option that you have is more of a location-based, where it's a library, commercial, downtown with an arrow with a mileage. That is what is approved by the MUTCD as one of the wayfinding options. Another, if you look at the right-hand side, it's more of a numbered system where we can number routes, and there's going to be those placards that go along. So if you're on Route 16, you just follow the signs that say Route 16 with an arrow, as well as if you look on the left, it has relatively simple placement suggestions where if it's a decision point, we want you to go left or right. So really want to get y'all's input. Do you want a verbiage-based wayfinding system here in Raleigh with the mileage, or do you want more of a numbered route process? And then lastly, with every neighborhood bikeway that we look to implement, we already look at speed limit reductions, speed evaluations, crash datas, and volumes to determine what is the best thing that we can do for that street. Is there anything else that we need to do outside of that wayfinding? So we want to bring forward a design process and design standard so that when one or more of those evaluation criterias are triggered, then it lets us know that you need to do X, Y, and Z, whatever that is. And we want to bring forward some policy potential for you to discuss. And then also, again, we largely have a lot of good guidance from the MUTCD at decision points. We need something, but just want to get your input on the frequency of wayfinding as well as the location of wayfinding so that it is as useful as possible. And so from today, the recommendation from staff is to move this item into the policy committee so that you can review in greater detail the MUTCD approved signs, provide clarification and direction to staff, look at the placing sorry, I should have brought my water with me. Those placing best practices, provide direction to staff, discuss a numbered versus a location-based system to see what you feel like the cyclists and the people using this system in Raleigh will benefit the most, and then also help us generate that decision tree, that matrix on how we design and implement neighborhood bikeways and what infrastructure goes in line with those as well. And so that is the end of my presentation. So if you have any questions, but ultimately we would hope that it goes to policy, have that deeper discussion, and then report back out to the broader community or broader commission at that time.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree that this is something that should go to policy committee. So as the chair of that committee, I will agree to that. I will open it up for questions if anyone has any kind of high-level questions, but I will ask for everyone to kind of keep in mind that this will be discussed in more detail in the policy committee. So, if we can have a couple minutes of questions, but the main question I had is there's nothing kind of preventing us from having kind of both styles, is there? I mean, maybe not completely, everywhere, but like, if we have mostly kind of the signs that have like the kind of destinations, if we do mostly those, there's nothing kind of precluding us from having, one or two numbered sections somewhere else, right?
No, absolutely. It could certainly be a blended approach, and that's probably going to be the best route. But again,
Right.
not to get into further detail, the goal is to make it very intuitive, and so we want to have that discussion to make sure that whatever we decide and whatever you recommend out is very logical. So.
Okay.
I just have one quick, it's actually a question for my fellow commissioners. Has anyone ever followed a numbered neighborhood bikeway? Has everyone, I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious. I mean, legitimately, has anyone ever ridden? Right, I've seen them. Yeah, I know. That's my input to the policy committee.
I have the same kind of gut feeling. There are actually still to this day quite a number of numbered routes kind of scattered, signs, I should say, scattered around the city from routes of presumably many years ago. So I think at the kind of level that our kind of our city is at and kind of our cycling community and riders are at this point, like I think most people are largely focused on trying to kind of get more people cycling versus kind of people that have their network map memorized and like, Route 56, I know that one. Like,
We don't have routes because we don't have a network.
Right, yeah.
Use the green one. You can't relate to your.
Yeah.
Let me just say that pedestrians would like a version of this as well.
Okay, we can absolutely take a look at that.
And if it helped the city to decide that there are pedestrian routes that need to be connected, I think, it's an exercise worth trying.
Absolutely. And so, shameless plug time again. We are working on our active transportation plan. That includes an update to the pedestrian plan. That is wonderful feedback that we can take to the consultant team to discuss to see how that could be implemented.
Does our updated plan integrate or align with the neighborhood bike plan? Or whatever that plan is called, whatever designates what's a neighborhood bike path right now, since that's what we were talking about this side going in.
So are you asking the plan the bike plan that we're trying to update? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So the bike plan is just an update. Like anything, we're coming. It's a 10-year plan. We're in year 7-ish. Is that about right, Barbara?
Just wanted to
And
make sure.
so it's to build on. We're not starting over. We're building on what is out there existing.
I'd like to make a comment when you guys go into deliberation, that active transportation users are different from motor vehicle drivers. We don't really calculate our decision-making based on distance, but time. Mm-hmm. And so I think it'd be really enable the general public to be able to determine whether to choose going by bike or by walking, because it's on a time measurement. And I also want to, Commissioner Smith brought up the pedestrian, wayfinding sign as well. And I'm just reminding us that ever since I've been on this commission, we've talked about the tactical urbanism of Walk Your City, which was established by a Raleigh resident. And he put up those tactical signs that say, hey, 15 minutes to the library, 25 minutes to your convenience store. And the city ultimately took them down, but agreed that these were really beneficial. And I had the impression that council approved them. And so that, good golly, 7 years, 10 years? Right?
This is where I first saw them, and I want them back.
Yeah, it was initiated here, and it's been brought up in the past. Well,
Absolutely. So I guess 2 points. Unfortunately, the MUTCD makes it clear that timed signage is not appropriate, so that's not something we can even consider. So it's mileage only. That is not a City of Raleigh rule. That is a federal guideline rule. And then also, to your point, we do have some wayfinding signage that we try to grow, but we'll absolutely take that as trying to get more of that out there. Just not out inside the downtown. We want to expand that out. That's certainly something that should be a goal of ours.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? What is the purpose of a neighborhood bikeway? I think you have to answer that question. Is it just a route that's designated as safer and therefore is to travel around? Is it to get places? Is it to, is it destination oriented, grocery stores, schools? It seems to me that that's really important. And then I didn't see anything about how this would be connected via perhaps an app or on the city's website. The city is pretty awful on the Greenway on keeping, I've heard this all the time, about keeping up with, where there's construction on the Greenway. Well, the same thing happens on city streets. And so how do you maintain and make that information real time?
And so I think the answer to your first one is yes. That's the easy answer. I think most of us live in neighborhoods, so you have to connect out to from a neighborhood before you get out to either the infrastructure that exists or the infrastructure that's coming. So a lot of those are finding those preferred routes that are safer, that direct you from where you are to where you're trying to go. So I think that's how we define it, or at least that's how Will Shoemaker defines it. I would love to hear from the policy committee if that's something else that you want to go to. And then also we're making great strides trying to partner with apps like Google Maps. I know they're not perfect, but really trying to go on there to keep that real-time infrastructure, get those updated so that you can pull out your phone, you can go anywhere in the city of Raleigh, type it into your GPS, you're not having to download a special app, because we used to have that and it was, again, we could not maintain that. So partnering with those existing applications, those big tech companies that do this daily, we have found to be more successful, and we're going to continue to try to do that to the best of our ability.
All right, thank you. And like I mentioned, we will continue this in the policy committee. If anybody that is not on the policy committee would like to join, you're more than welcome. So moving on to reports. First item is chair's report, and since Mr. Neptune is not here this month, we will skip. Planning committee. Mr. Tong is not here. Is there? Okay, there was no meeting of planning committee. Policy committee, we did not meet as well. Staff has requested that we shift our meeting date due to staff conflict. So we will figure out a new meeting time and update everybody accordingly. Outreach committee.
Yes, we did meet last week. It was a small group, but a good conversation. I met with Mr. Shoemaker and Ms. Godwin. Other activities, I attended the Crabtree West ribbon cutting and dedication ceremony. That was great. And I didn't realize this, but that project was 30 years in the making. So really appreciate all the staff involved in making that happen. It was a huge effort. And it was pretty cool as the dignitaries were speaking and the ribbons were being cut. There was people riding Cardinal bike shares behind them on the Greenway. So that was, I don't know if they were like cued to do that, but it worked, you know. So, and then I did view last month's Transportation and Transit meeting on the city's YouTube channel. And I do plan to attend the upcoming meeting on 9/26, and we'll be speaking at that. And then some items from the Greenway Committee. Barbara, back me up if I miss any of this, but the Greenway sort of sidewalk gaps, that we are putting markings down to help people navigate those sections of Greenway that might put you out on a sidewalk for a short period and then get you back on a Greenway. I think we've decided on what the markings will look like, and they're looking for a contractor to implement that, right? Yeah. And then we're also going to have updated printed maps of the Greenway system, I think early next calendar year, maybe? Is that optimistic? Okay.
Yeah, optimistic.
Okay. And then the wayfinding sign project is underway as well for the Greenway system. And I don't know when to expect those to actually be in the ground, but that's happening as well. So exciting stuff there.
All right. Staff reports.
No report from me. Memo included in your packet with several updates.
No report.
Thank you. Yeah, I will just call to everyone's attention the staff memo that's in the agenda packet and on the Board Docs website. There's a number of follow-up items from last month, including information on the crash data information that was brought up, along with the status of a number of ongoing activities. So that brings us to general board comments. Any board comments? Again, at 7:32.
Yeah, I get it. I wanted to make a comment about the St. Mary's resurfacing project. I wrote on it, it's really progressing well. I wrote on it traveling south from Wade Avenue, And it seems like the bike lane is only about 3 feet wide. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but it felt really tiny. And then there's a buffer that's about 18 inches, and then there's the motor vehicle traffic. And I wanted to make this comment because I cycled closer towards the outer line of the bike lane because I didn't feel comfortable traveling in the middle of the bike lane, and so I appreciated having the buffer. But then I didn't remember, are we installing vertical delineators in the buffer zone to create even more separation?
That is part of the plan, just not with this resurfacing contract. This is
Okay.
only markings first.
Okay. I was going to propose that we, if we can, if policy allows, to have the delineators be closer to the motor vehicle lane than to the bike lane and not in the center of the buffer zone to make it more comfortable for the bike rider.
Can we get an update, not necessarily right now, but maybe in the next report from this meeting on the e-bike incentive program and where that is, what the outcome was, if there is one known yet, or?
Yes, we can bring a report back. That's being managed by our Commute Smart team.
Okay, thank you.
I sent out earlier today a press release for White Cane Day. I hope you all received it. It's a nice little event we have planned. Probably be 60 or 70 people, maybe. The Governor Moorhead School is involved, and a lot of other people. The City of Raleigh is very involved. We're going to be meeting at Art Space at 201 East Davie Street at 9 on Tuesday, the 15th of October. I'd really appreciate it if any of you who could make it would come and walk with us. I think it'll be very enlightening on a lot of different levels. You'll meet some really interesting people, and I don't know, just the practice, I think, is a pretty inspiring practice. We'll leave around 9:30 or so and go up to the legislature, and hopefully we can coerce the governor to join us. Either way, we'll have a good time. We'll have a bunch of people. And the event is basically designed to draw awareness to the experience of people with vision loss in the right-of-way. And I've always, felt, I was born in 1964, right around the time the Civil Rights Act was passed, and I've always felt like I kind of grew up with it. And this event was in 1964, the first one was at the White House. So it's kind of a legacy of it's a civil rights event. It's not just a disability event, it's a civil rights event. And we're going to be walking in front of the Department of Transportation. Hopefully they will look out the window. And anyway, please join us if you can. Anyone who wants to sit in on a Zoom meeting, planning meeting on Wednesday, let me know and I will give you the link and you can sit on it if you'd like. It's a short meeting at 11:30 on Wednesday. And if you have any ideas or if you have any questions, I'd be glad to talk to you. Just get in touch with me. And if you could send that press release along to anybody that you think it would be appropriate, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I just want to say, you all have heard us talk and it's been mentioned here today, about the Crabtree West extension of the Greenway out and now connecting from Anderson Point to the park at Umstead Park. And we really had huge help from two members of BPAC, and Celeste Bravo Taylor and Veronica Goodwin, and we really, really appreciate their help. They were fabulous, and there were other members of BPAC out attending on Saturday, and we feel really good, and it's going to ultimately go for art on the Greenway, which if you travel in other cities and look at other greenways, you'll find lots of art, and for some reason that has just not happened in Raleigh yet. So we're working with the Arts Commission to help expedite that along the way. So thanks especially to these women, and thanks to all of you all for the thing. And also Celise and Brian are on the Greenway Committee, and it has made such a difference to have the interaction between these two boards. It really, I mean, weather today shows us that we cannot rely on the resilience of our greenways to be our primary source of multimodal transportation, but they are one of the links, and so having the conversation go all directions is really important. So thank you.
Thank you. And just as a minor callback, I will put a little bug in everyone's ear that as part of the next comp plan update, I think a key item or goal in that should be kind of to push our greenway system to be part of that transportation network and not just recreational, and to kind of be a true transportation link.
Well,
and
however,
pathway
it
across
is the
city.
largest park in the city, so we have to be mindful
There you
that
go.
it is first and foremost a park.
Yes, I agree, 100%. There is one more additional announcement, and that is Commissioner Neptune asked me to be the representative on the city's Vision Zero Task Force team. So I proudly accepted and put my name down on the list, and so we should be starting that up soon. I'm excited.
Okay. And with that, we will move to upcoming events. So just to reiterate again, the White Cane event, October 15th. And are there any other events upcoming?
October is a big month. It's called Walktober, and the Safe Routes to School Wake County team has been promoting the Walk and Roll to School event. It will be happening throughout October, so this really is for the staff to be aware of, because there'll be more pedestrian activity around school properties. The national event is October 9th, but there's 40 Wake County Public Schools that have already registered, so they're anticipating, which is an increase from last year. So that's a pretty big deal. I thought I mentioned it.
Does anyone else have any events that you would like to
I don't think the date has been set for the next Bike Plan Steering Committee meeting yet, but I know there are 2 remaining meetings. I was unfortunately unable to attend the one in August, and I have heard feedback from other members of that committee that they would like more citizen input than 2 meetings, because the first one, from reading the minutes, looks like it was primarily introductory. And so how do you have meaningful interaction with a total of 3 meetings?
Okay. With no other events, we will confirm our next BPAC meeting, which will be October 21st in council chambers. And with that, we will adjourn for this September meeting.
Good job.
Well done.